about operation analysis. And most businesses have all different kinds of audits carried out. It can be health and safety audits, ISO 9000 audits, financial audits, production planning. There's numerous different types of audits that are carried out. But again, what I have seen is very rarely is an audit carried out over on a facilities department. And I would say on companies that I've kind of questioned, I would say better than 75 or more percent have never even heard of having an operational analysis audit done. And when you consider it, a facilities department is utilizing about a third of the expenditure of any organization, because you're talking about all of your fossil fuels and heating costs, all your maintenance costs, the cost for plant and equipment. So it really adds up. Normally, about the only two greater expenditures that an organization will have will be payroll and for purchasing materials if they're a production company or manufacturing company. So again, it's just very surprising that nobody carries out an operation analysis, which realistically should be done about once a year, but again, doesn't happen. So this is something that I've been working with companies over the last 20 years. And what I've done is I've actually put together a workbook, and this is the tool that I actually use when going in and visiting a company. And what I'm just going to do is put up the link there so you can actually download it for yourselves. And this is actually the full workbook. There's nothing cut out of it. So that's the link just there for it now. So it's just on a Google Drive, so you'll be able to download it, no problem at all. So a facilities department covers a whole range of activities. And again, it's on these, the audit is to look at those. So I suppose what we'll do, I'll share my screen again, the same as last night, and we'll work our way through the workbook and give you an idea of what can be done. Now, with this workbook, you can pretty much carry out an analysis yourselves. The only thing is that it won't be an independent viewpoint, and you won't find that you possibly will get the same results out of it as having somebody coming in from externally to actually to do it for you. So I'm just going to share that now. So hopefully everybody can see that okay. So I basically have broken it down into 10 sections. So we've got our daily facility operations, and this is normally when I go in, which is like my first impression that I actually get of a facilities department. And you can have it on like two different extremes on it. On one side, it can be absolute bedlam. You've people rolling down phones, you've contractors looking for paperwork, you've other people looking for dockets, there's emails coming in that have to be answered. It's just crazy. And then you can have it at the other extreme, where especially if a facilities department is pushing most of the work through a facilities management company, and it's kind of, oh, another request come in, I'll just forward it on. And it's a complete opposite scenario. Ideally, what you want is somewhere between the two of them. The next one part then is communication structures, what procedures and policies are in place, and we'll go through all of these in detail. We've covered a lot now yesterday on the CMMS integration. We've got data handling, budget tracking, health and safety and cybersecurity, contractor controls, the plant rooms and the building fabric itself, and then environmental, which is impacting us from every blooming direction, not just in the workplace. I'll skip past the introduction because we've basically done that on it. So the first one, as I say, facilities operations. And as I say, it's a first view that you're actually looking at it. You can have people like that can have a fully working CMMS, but then still a huge amount of paper documentation going on with it. Looking at productivity levels, task organization. Again, I've seen this in bigger facilities departments that one area can be very, very busy, another area, a group of people not so. It just doesn't seem to be a divided environment, and it's like there's two or three separate teams working together rather than working as an individual team. Staffing levels, which is both like on your admin staff, your in-house engineers, external contractors. Again, there can be quite a disparity between these. Sometimes you can have a huge amount of administrative staff levels, and literally for the smallest thing, it's all passed externally, or you can have a mix. But it's just seeing what way the mix is there and what way that they all work together. The communication tools, as I said, the bulk of it by rights should be running through your CMMS, but this often isn't the case. We can see I've seen everything from post-it notes, whiteboards with tasks and everything written up on them where people have had to come in and look at them. Rows of box folders, what do you call it? Different things with telephones, even some people still using fax machines. It's just to see what way the whole communication is set up inside there. And then the overall workplace environment and work scheduling, how is that actually handled? Does everybody have to come into the facilities department to get their schedules of work and what's needed, or can it be handled through the CMMS? Again, it's a complete wide variety inside there, and this is one of the first areas that I look at, or you can look at as I say used it. So in each of these sections, I've got a range of questions on them. I have my own scoring rating from 1 for poor, 5 absolutely excellent, notes on what is seen and so on like that, and then what they call a follow-up is it needed to come back onto it. So I'm not going to go through all of these questions that are in the workbook because there's well over 300 of them there. But again, as I said, you've got the link there and you can download it and have a look and work through them on yourselves on it. So for each section then, I build up an average score over of what I've seen, and this then goes into a tally sheet at the end of the workbook. So next part of it, communication structures. You all know the advert that's been on TV for many years out there about things being good to talk. The funny thing is, with facilities, there's actually normally very, very poor communication structures. At the very top level, we're looking at facility managers versus C-level managers. There are so many places that they literally communicate once per year. So it's like, this is meet up, this is your budget for the year. And if there's anything going beyond budget and so on like that, actually, we don't want to hear from you. Just get on with it, deal with it. And that literally can be the extent of the communication, which again, as I say, is crazy when your facilities are going to use a third of your expenditure budget. Then facilities team and talking with other departments, again, can be very, very poor. So this then impacts on the way jobs process and so and that with it, that they often haven't got a protocol in place. So you could have your facilities team and you could have, we'll say, your financial department, and there's very little going on there, which again is very important. I'll bring it up a little bit later on the budget side and that, but when facilities and especially finance don't talk, then like I said yesterday, I've seen some absolutely crazy bills being passed through, like over €8,000 for hanging a picture, and different things like that. It's just absolutely crazy. Then the actual facility manager or states manager, person over the entire department, is see what way and relationship and communication structure have they got with the actual team on it. Again, it can switch some, it can be a very hands-on and working very much as a team. For others, it can be very what you call it broken up and not a good communication structure there with it. Facilities team, again, with contractors, the biggest thing that needs to be built up through communication with contractors is trust. If you are bringing in basically people you don't know, and you're asking them to look after potentially millions of euros worth of plant and equipment, you've got to have a good communication structure with them. If you've just got it that a case that they're coming in, they're doing the work, they're just throwing the reports and all that back at you, recommendations on what to be done, and there's no interaction going on. Like by rights, when a contractor sees a fault that's fairly serious and so on that, it should be the guys come up and have a look at this, talk through it, discuss, build up a good communication structure on it. Again, a lot that can be quite lacking. And then last one, of course, facility managers and health and safety. I was with a company there last year. Health and safety had brought in a team of consultants and they were literally rewriting their entire rule book for health and safety for the entire organization. Unfortunately, not one single person from the facilities department was invited right through the entire procedure. So literally, they were going to come up with this new rule book, and then when it was finished and all that, it was just going to be dumped down onto facilities. And here, guys, this is what's happening now, and work with it. You can imagine the negative impact that was actually going to have on it. You know, they were just people's backs were going to get up. There was just going to be non-compliance. It just wasn't going to work out in any way. So again, communication really is everything. It's the same in no matter what relationship then you have in companies, even in personal life, you've got to have a good communication structure there. So that's the second part that is actually looked at when doing the operation analysis. So how does that make sense to everybody so far? Again, if you want to leave any comments and so on like that, please do. And I'll try and reply to them as I see them coming up there in the chat. But hopefully this again is making sense. And again, with the communication, I've arranged the questions and so like that with it. And again, being independent and somebody going like this, then it does give my company the ability that we can go through all the various departments and talk and arrange meetings, whether we want to talk to the CEO, see what his viewpoint on it is, right down to talking to maybe subcontractors and that. It's very difficult to do it when you're just one section within a company and to get everybody to basically open up on where they see where things are good on it. The third part of organizational procedures and policies. Are there set policies on how things should actually be done? So whether it's what you call on documentation, so that whether a job of certain size or type comes in, that you're going to have work permits. You want method statements, you want health and safety statements, you want risk analysis done. Are there actually full procedures in place that are always going to be followed on this? If something goes wrong, are there procedures to follow to rectify it, or whatever needs to be done, what you call it, depending on the seriousness of something actually going wrong with it? Again, it can be very, very lax, or there can be a full set of procedures in place, except nobody follows them. So again, that's the section that we're looking at on here and seeing what way that they can be done. Unfortunately, there's always somebody, and this is human nature. We don't really want to follow procedures. We don't want to be given a rule book and say that we actually have to follow this. But so much of the work that is being carried out with facilities is actually dangerous. You could be working at heights, confined spaces. There could be heavy loads that need to be moved. So procedures have to be in place to cover ourselves on all of these with it. And again, with that section, we have various questions coming out on it. We'll skip over this one relatively fast because we talked about it yesterday, and that how much are they using the CMMS program? And like as I said yesterday, in so many places, it's only partially used, and you've got a very expensive piece of software that's being relatively ignored for various reasons. So that we did cover a lot on yesterday. So data handling, again, we covered a lot of that yesterday on with analytics and all that, which are absolutely vital. If you need to keep things running smoothly, if you need to keep your budgets down, you're going to have to work with analytics. Your cost checking, are you actually getting value for money on the work that's actually being done with it? So you have to have the ability, again, is with analytics, but now this is also bringing in your finance department, that you're seeing that similar jobs are similar costed. Any jobs that are beyond the norm are the policies being followed that you have to get in, depending on the value, you might have to get in 3 quotations. It might have to go out for tender or whatever it means that you have on it. But are these checks and all that in place to make sure that it is being done? And then while work is being done, especially if it's a complex work, are there checks in place in case the contractor comes along and says, well, this wasn't here on our original parameters and so on like that, it's going to cost you X amount more. So again, that all this type of thing is being kept in check. KPIs, we mentioned a bit again yesterday. Again, quite important, especially when it comes to third-party people on board, like contractors and all that. You need to know that they're following the rule books, and that's with it. I've seen so many different times where there's been accidents involving contractors with PPE. Some of these have been pretty blooming well nasty. And again, it should be a case of that they know the rules, the regulations back to our procedures and policies and that again, and they follow them. Also, again, knowing that if they're told to come in, that work is to start on the maintenance of, say, air handlers, and they're due in, we'll say now on the 19th of September, that they're expected to turn up on the 19th. Because after all, you are the customer. You are paying them to carry out the work. It's not the other way around on it. So again, if they're failing to meet arrival times, deadlines, any other thing, then it should be kept track of with the KPIs. And when they reach a certain point, which again has to be decided by the company themselves, then it's a wrap on the knuckles time or whatever policies are in place for that. Your plant analysis, that you're keeping data on that. Right? It's like everything else, it's aging as time goes on. You need to know that at the moment 24, so say that 25, we have this amount of plant is going to have to be either remodeled, replaced, or serious repairs taken out. Same again for 26 and 27. And then this goes back again to the finance department. It goes back to health and safety if you've got heavy plant replacement, and right up to the C-level managers so that they are aware that they are going to have budgetary needs in the future. I actually saw it again with one company there where a chiller, it was about 15, 16 years old. It was getting near its end of usable service. It cost over 2.5 million euros. And I said to both the CFO and the CEO, I said, are you aware that you've got a 2.5 million chiller that you're going to have to replace within the next couple of years? You know, both of them nearly started looking for the Valium. Just had no idea whatsoever that literally it even existed. And again, we're back to where we said previously, communication. People, everybody needs to be keeping in the loop, all the stakeholders within the organization. It's an overall, it's a team. They need to be kept on it. And then data flows continuously broken. Again, I've seen where you have different policies and so on like that, or procedures in place, working great for 3 months, 6 months, a year, and then they start getting broken. Some of these people start circumventing it and so on like that. I mean, one of the most common ones that I've seen where the data flow gets broken is that we say all of the remedial work tickets are running through the CMS, and then a manager approaches an in-house technician, contractor. Oh, look, while you're here, you wouldn't do this for me. Look, I'll stick it up on the system or something like that sometime. Never happens. The work gets done, and now we've got something that's broken out of the data flow. And once it happens once, it starts repeating and getting progressively worse on it. And this is across all different areas. So again, this checking, are the data flows intact inside that? And again, with that section, we've got our various questions and so like that on it. So budget tracking. I mean, at the moment, I think I might have mentioned this yesterday when you look across on LinkedIn and you're looking at there's I don't know how many dozens of polls and posts that there's been over the last year. Facilities are having huge issues with budgets at the moment. Just everything is becoming unbelievably expensive. So again, how is that being controlled? Again, we're back to procedures, we're back to sharing information, we're back to communication on it. So again, it's got it within the facilities department and their own teams. So if they're starting to see costs increasing on certain work areas and so on like that, it's got to come back and it's got to be start being controlled. For plant and equipment, if you're seeing for certain plant that spares, parts, and so on like that, the prices are going absolutely crazy on it, then that's got to be tracked back as well. Same with your contractors, your suppliers. For most of them, you will have had a contractual agreement with them for either hourly rates, or it could be on an annual contract that they've got to do X amount of work within an annual contract for a certain fixed price on it. They're under pressure as well and can start coming back and say, look, we just can't do it anymore for this. And again, you've got to see how you can track the budget. How's that going to affect your annual budget? What do you need to do on it? And the other one, of course, something goes wrong. It is always going to happen. The last thing as a facilities department that you want is something goes wrong. Now, it could be a fact of it, it could be a plant failure. It could be something environmental that the weather went cuckoo, there was flooding, something, anything else like that. There could have been storm damage, whatever. That you've got budgetary allowances there to handle this. Not that you've got to go back and say, we need, okay, X amount more. It's outside of our annual budget. And this causes all kinds of problems all the way down the line on it. So again, with the operation analysis, we're just looking at this and how is the whole thing actually controlled, and are there procedures and policies in place to tackle all of these different elements that can come in with the budgets. And again, we've got our different questions on it. So health and safety. As I say, the number of times where I've seen the health and safety team and the facilities team not talking to each other is absolutely blooming crazy. Um, there was one now actually only a very few weeks ago where an air handler was being replaced and it required quite a large crane to actually lift it into place in the building. Facilities had never told health and safety this was going to happen. So crane arrives on site, gets set up, truck arrives with the air handler, and somebody from health and safety sees what's going on and just calls a complete and utter halt to the entire operation and basically stopped it. And through whatever reasons, whether it was more just kind of griping or that there were procedures and policies that were in place that just weren't followed and so on like that. Basically, the crane had to leave site, the air handler was taken away, and it was took something like nearly 6 to 8 weeks before it settled down and it could actually progress and happen again. It's just it's just what you call it daft on it. I mean, again, going back to contractors, PP and so on like that, it should be a joint effort between both facilities and health and safety, keeping a track on what's going on with that. But again, it often isn't. Um, and again, you get somebody from health and safety comes along, sees contractors not following the rules and regulations and that on it, and what do you call it, all hell breaks loose again on it. Like another one, again, with your documentation on it, again, boats should be working on this to ensure that anybody working on site has their insurance, they have all the certificates, they have all the training, and everything is up to date with it. Because facilities and all of that, they work across the entire organization. They can work across production areas, office areas, staff canteens, you name it, all different areas on it. And the last thing that you want is for another member of the organization to get hurt and injured by, it could be somebody on the facilities team, it could be by a contractor, and then finding out that they're not insured or that their certificates for carrying out different types of works and all that have expired. You're going into a really nasty, long legal process if something like that happens. So again, both sides should be well working together on that. And again, both sides should work out a common policy on identification. So by rights, everybody that's working there should have some form of a name badge on their clothing, and especially for anybody else that's coming in. So at least somebody knows what's going on. Where this doesn't happen, then things can go very, very seriously wrong. Just a quick story again from quite a number of years ago that two people turned up in a company. They had all their PPE on. They actually, on their high-vis vest, they had the name of a company on the back of it. And they were said that they needed to actually check out all the seals on all the fire doors throughout the building. And because they look like contractors, they had a name on the back of their high vis that said that they belonged to the company that would be doing that type of work. And it was like kind of like pass friend, off you go, work your way through. And they were left in. This actual company had a very secure stock room. There was a lot of high value goods and a very high value of the goods that were actually inside there. And these two people kind of said, oh, we need to check the door seals going into there as well. And so somebody used the code to let them in so that they could check it. And then it was kind of, oh, look, we need to go out and get some tools and do different things and so like that. And somebody very, very foolishly actually gave them the code into the secure room. And thereafter, and as calm as you like, they walked out the building and were gone. It was actually only by pure chance that later that day, another couple of guys actually turned up from that same company who were genuine and belonged to that company. And They said to him, "Oh, sure, a couple of your guys were here this morning and they were checking the fire door sealed." I kind of, no, that's not on the schedule to be done for another period of time and so on like that. And nobody from our company should have been with you this morning. And it was finally things started falling into place that these were basically two imposters that had come in. And if it hadn't been twigged, and pure luck, as I say, that two guys turned up from the company in real in the afternoon, these guys had the access codes and they would have come back that night or whatever like that and basically cleared it out. There would have been millions of euros worth of stock taken. And that was just because there was no ID procedures or anything in place within the company. So again, it's just a story, it's a true story, but again, how important that something like this actually is in place. So again, just the various questions going with that. The next section on that, cybersecurity. Companies are spending a fortune, depending on what they're doing, protecting their servers and just trying to protect themselves on cybersecurity at the moment. And that's not really the side that I'm going to look at. That's normally incredibly well covered. And as I say, companies are spending an absolute fortune on it. But when you actually look at it from a facilities viewpoint on it, all that money is actually that's being spent because literally for nothing. Let's just say I could think of dozens of companies that have servers controlling production, controlling a whole load of high-level events and so on like that, basically very critical servers. And it would take me, what you call it, less than 5 or 10 minutes, and I could knock those servers out for weeks, if not months, and literally bring that entire company down. Let's just say it's the physical side of it is not being covered, where you have tens, hundreds of thousands or more on software and so on like that for cybersecurity. And then on the other side, you've got a 3 euro padlock or maybe nothing at all. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on this, but again, what you got, if anybody wants to talk to me afterwards or send me a DM and so on like that, I'll talk to them directly because it's specific with companies and so on like that. But let's just say that from a physical access point regarding cybersecurity, the vast majority of companies do not have any security. It's just absolutely crazy out there, and it's just something that for some reason has slipped through the net, and it just hasn't been thought of. So again, just different questions on that. So section 8, just taking a quick drink there. Again, is this making sense to everybody? Can I get a thumbs up or a yes or so on like that? That it is making sense, or and that I'm not kind of rattling on and it's just kind of going over people's heads and so on like that. So if anybody can wants to just come back and go yay or nay or so like that. Or have I just bored everybody to tears and you're actually all asleep at the moment? Hopefully not. Great. So big one note section on it, contractor controls. And as I say, customer's always right, customer pays the bill, and you should never let the tail wag the dog on it. And I've seen this, as I said yesterday, like with my own experiences, and I worked for years for a major contracting company, and I have seen where there hasn't been controls, communication, policies, procedures, where it can actually go absolutely crazy and out of control, and that with it. I'll just give one very quick story in point on it again, where contractors were servicing a very expensive, very large piece of plant, and they had lost the contract, and actually the company I was working for had taken over the contract. So that was one of the first items of plant that we went up to have a look at. And basically, one end of that item of plant, the electrical end of it, was just totally and utterly destroyed. And it had been done a long time ago. We kind of estimated at least 3 to 4 years prior to us coming on site. However, that contracting company had been in supposedly servicing the item of plant 4 times a year. And they had been putting in reports and that saying that basically that it was fine, it was working, and so on. And it just so happened that environmentally, climate-wise, and so on like that, this item of plant was very, very rarely switched on. Its power demands were crazy, literally equivalent nearly to a small town. And it hadn't actually been switched on for use for the organization for about roughly the same period of time. Otherwise, people would have suddenly realized that it wasn't working. So you could just see there was just a whole entire range of things that had gone wrong. And that this contracting company had been able to come in, possibly they caused the damage to it. Nobody's ever going to know on it. But at the same time, they were coming in, claiming that they had serviced it, putting in reports, they were getting paid, and that for the work that they had done on it. It was a complete pack of lies. But there's no contractor controls in place to, I mean, the very first time, excuse me, the very first time that they had come in and said that the service and everything was okay, somebody should have checked. There's no checks were carried out. And I mean, the damage was so obvious on it. Right? Let's just say that we found pieces of that plant over 300 meters away from it. It was the damage was an explosion in nature. So the importance of having contractor controls. And I know that is at the very top level of extreme, but it's there on it. So companies should have an induction for any contractors coming on, and all their qualifications and skills should be noted and again kept track of when they're due to expire and so on like that. So again, that in no way possible are you going to have somebody uncertified, unqualified, uninsured, and so on like that coming on site. Again, ensuring that they're up to date with their PPE on health and safety and so on like that. If they're doing workspace environment barriers and so on like that, all should be set up as per procedures and taken into account the environment and that they're working in. Documentation, again, when it's coming back from, should be exactly in the format and clarity and quality and volume that is demanded by the customer, not by the contractor. Again, post-completion checks, going back to that item of plant. The number of sites that I have actually been on where nobody follows up and looks at the work that contractors have done afterwards is absolutely crazy. And it's getting a lot worse out there. Like when I started in facilities, the people working in the facilities department, there was roughly a 70-30 split, where about 70% were trades-based or had some qualification relating to facilities, and the other 30% were just pure admin. Today, that has completely swapped over. Now we're looking at up to 70% or more of staff in the facilities department are completely administrative with no technical skills behind them. And that's a very small number then have the technical skills. Sometimes the entire facilities team or the people running in the facilities have no technical skills whatsoever, especially for companies that are using facility management companies for doing the bulk of the work that's being carried out on it. And they just never check. I'm not going to be kind of sexist in or I don't mean to be in any shape or form, but I just know like with one company there and the facility manager, she's a woman, she turns up in nearly couture clothes to work, high heels, and so on like that. She doesn't own one stitch of PPE equipment. So there's absolutely no way that she is going to start wandering around dirty, oily plant rooms, start climbing up external wall ladders, or doing anything else like that. And if contractors see that, they know that she is never going to check on it. So it's like opening up an open book for them. So what I'm doing now in on Friday, which is the last day of the series, I'll actually be talking about with staff that don't have the technical background how they can carry out minimal no touch techniques to actually check that plant has been serviced in a safe and controlled manner. So that's coming up on Friday. Again, of course, making sure all the work permits, risk assessments, and all that are in place. The amount of sites as well that don't stock just very, very basic spare parts, whether it could be like belts for air handlers, filters, and so on like that. Normally relatively low cost parts that could be easily stored. And then contractors are doubling, tripling, quadrupling the price that they're charging for these parts coming in. Again, tenders, quotations, making sure they're done in, the site departures, reporting. Basically, on the admin side, making sure that it is all there and that the contractors or whoever that you're using, and especially when it comes to like a facilities management company, that they are adhering to it. Because I have seen there's some brilliant facility management companies out there, and there's other ones that I just say that basically like the judge, jury, and executioner. They judge what they're doing, the jury goes out, and they decide how they're going to react. And as I say, executioner, they just follow their own rules and policies and basically to hell with the client. And they're just doing whatever they want and then billing massively for it and no controls whatsoever on them. Thankfully, they're much in the minority, but they still do exist out there. So again, on that section, you see it's quite a lot of questions on that. Plant homes and buildings, again, this is something that I always do, or my team does, that we always do when we go on site, is basically looking around. It's fine if something has a used look. That's perfectly normal with it. But there's a very big difference between something that has a used look and then something that is dirty, shabby, run down, neglected. And this goes on two different things. I mean, like, first off, let's look, say, at the overall building fabric. So you have a factory, you have offices, whatever, what you got a business that your company is in. When you get a visitor coming to your company, that's their very, very first impression when they come in through the gate or the driveway, parking lot, whatever way that they're actually coming to reception and all of that. If they mentally know that place is kind of looking a bit run down and it's a bit shabby and all that, that is going to completely alter their approach to your business and whatever negotiations and conversation is going to carry on. So that's one side of it. Again, looking at plant rooms, there's no reason ever for plant rooms to look like a rubbish tip. And believe you me, I have seen so many of them looking that way on it. I mean, then again, they don't have to look like they're an operating theatre, but they should be clean, they should be tidy, they shouldn't be just a dumping ground because there's space there for whatever else that people find. And definitely when it comes to something like retail and all that, they should not be used as an additional warehouse or stock room or so like that. Just going back to just another short story on it. On one site that I visited, it was a large retail chain, and in one of their boiler houses, It was just full of cardboard boxes, and there must have been 30 or 40,000 pressurized containers, basically everything from hairspray to floor polish to whatever you could think of in pressurized cans that would have gone out onto the retail shelf was stocked inside there. And the boiler rooms were hot. I'd say it was pretty close to a serious risk inside there. So just never should have happened on it. So again, that's something that I look at. And again, I suppose it's like anything. Like if you go into a restaurant, if you what you call see that your meal comes out and the plate looks a bit dirty or the tablecloths aren't clean and so on, like that, you're most likely going to get up and going to walk out. So again, with the facilities in that, if plant rooms are looking in a complete unkept state, then the whole image goes back and you're kind of going, well, if that's like that, then there's going to be huge problems with maintenance. And the questions just keep coming and coming and coming. And what else is going wrong with it, with that facilities department? So, as I say, the picture in this case definitely paints 1,000 words on it. So again, just we have a few questions on that. And one of the last parts that we kind of have on this, again, environmental policies. There are huge changes coming down the road environmental wise. Again, we'll be talking about that most likely more about this now tomorrow. And so many companies are not preparing for this. You've seen it now. If we go back a few years ago and we had our CFC gases, especially, I don't know how many of you remember, like R22, and it just became illegal to use it, whether it was in your air conditioning and other plants and equipment with it, just because of the damage that it was being done to the environment. And in many cases, for the air conditioning plant or so that was using it, it wasn't a case that you could clean it out and just put in another, what you call a more modern gas, 144 or whatever the current ones and so like that are there now. You ended up having to spend a lot of money replacing parts and plant and equipment, or come up with a completely new way of actually doing it. So I know in one site it was something like 200 or 300 air conditioning units got replaced by air handlers. So they're talking big money on it. You can see it here in Ireland. I think it's pretty much the same in the UK, just on the domestic scene. No new house is allowed to install a gas or an oil-fired boiler. And it's coming down the roads. I think at the moment it's about 2032 or something like that. That is going to start becoming impossible to get them repaired or spare parts and so like that on it. So we're looking at a very big cost now for homeowners that they're having to change over to solar heat units, some pumps, all different types of things as a supplement or because they can't put in boilers anymore. I don't know how many companies are out there that are still relying on fossil fuels for heating. And I do have some sources out there, and they're telling me changes are going to come that way as well. So if you've got, it's your company, you're using, we'll say, gas-fired boilers, and they're also then what you call it, using the hot water coming from them for your air handlers and so on and so forth through. If the day comes you can't use fossil fuels anymore, what plans are you making to change? For like the heat pumps and so on like that. Yeah, if it's a new building, you can do a changeover. But if your building is old, especially if we say it's 80s, 70s, older than that, they're not going to work. They're not going to be efficient enough for it. So you've got on one end, somebody's telling you you cannot use fossil fuels anymore. But then on the other side, you've got a technology isn't matching up because your building isn't there. So, I mean, you could be looking at huge expense in restructuring your building to bring it up to an appreciable an applicable installation level, and then what you call plant equipment that's going forward on it. There's just so many different areas that are coming on it. Like, okay, recycling, relatively low cost, that is been adapted by most businesses and so on like that now. So you have your recycle bins and so on like that. It's relatively low cost. The big ones out there are going to be, especially on your fossil fuels, your energy usage, your emissions. There's a lot coming down the road on there, and again, I've seen so many companies out there that are just trying to put this way out on the edge, and let's not worry about it. But the day will come and it's suddenly going to impact on it. So again, something that companies need to think about and work towards the future. And it's affecting the companies now. Just a lot of this type of stuff for all the companies, companies that were existing 60s and the 70s into the 80s, these type of things were never a concern. But it's something that's changing now on it, and who knows what way it's going to go, but I think it's going to come in because the way that we're seeing the climate is changing out there. It is, I think, changing faster than people anticipated. I'm not going to go into the yays and nays of what's actually causing it. I mean, because that debate is still open out there, and there's a lot of discussion on it. But we can actually see the climate is changing. Nobody can deny that out there. And because that's changing, it's going to impact on it. And it's not only just on the fossil fuels side of it as well. Because the climate is changing, we're starting to see a lot more stronger winds. We're starting to see a lot more flooding. In the summer, places are getting way, way hotter. And all of this then comes back down into your facilities and other departments in it on how we're going to actually tackle this. I mean, we've seen there what you call it last year, Spain and a lot of around the Mediterranean, temperatures hit 50 degrees. And in many cases, even their air conditioning just failed to work because it wasn't rated to work within those temperatures. So you can't have staff working in what could potentially be a dangerous environment because there's no cooling and so on like that. And it's so much is coming out. I kind of recommend, depending on the size of an organization and so on like that they literally start getting a dedicated person to start looking at this and to start making plans for what is going to come on it. But that's again with the operation analysis, it is with recommendations and so like that. So again, it's going for that. So it all comes down to a scorecard, and we've put in a score on all the different areas out of it. And then we can get an actual picture overall on how well you're actually doing. So again, as I say, if you've downloaded or you're going to download the workbook, please go ahead. And everything that you've actually seen here today is there inside that workbook. All the questions, everything that you've seen is there on it. I just say that it can be quite difficult to do that yourselves. Every other audit that you get done, as I say, whether it's ISO, health and safety, financial audits, and so on like that, they're normally always done by third parties because you can get an unbiased and independent viewpoint. And this is again is what my company does, that we provide this. So again, if anybody is interested in something like that, we've got a special offer. As I say, it's down to 4 now, and it's €1,750, and that we will work through with this workbook and work right through your company and so like that. We're not going to say that you must do this. We're not going to say that you mustn't do that. It's the case of that we're just going to say we think things could possibly be done better in these areas and so on like that. And we can work with you on what's the best way to do them. So again, I'm just going to stick the link in there if anybody wants to take us up on this offer. And this offer is only there until about 8 p.m. on Friday night. I said, just put it up there, Mike. It's just the one straight above you there. Great thing. So again, we're going to give a very big and independent viewpoint for your business. And as I say, we go through all these questions now because each business is individual. There's going to be questions that aren't valid, and there'll be questions that aren't actually on the list because of it that we'll actually ask and so on like that. But the whole thing is just to give you a picture on where we think things can be improved, and then you can go yay and nay and agree with it or not agree with it and see what needs to do it or not. But it just gives you an independent picture. We've been doing this pretty much for the best part of nearly 20 years now. And for a lot of companies that have implemented our suggestions and so on like that, I would say typically on average that we've saved those companies at least 100,000 euros. I can think of actually 3 or 4 companies where that has actually gone into 7 figures on the savings that we've been able to suggest for them. So it's quite a good offer, what you call it, of 1,750 if we can show you the potential to save that much on it. So also, I'm just going to stick up another link for you there that we have a page where we're putting up the replays. So again, you'll be able to look at tonight's training and so like that tomorrow. That'll be up there, I'd say, by around about mid to late morning. And yesterday's session on the CMMS is already there that you can, what you call it, go onto YouTube and you can watch the thing all over again. So we'll be putting up all the replays on there for you so you can go back and watch them again. So that's around about us for tonight. Tomorrow I'll be looking more on the health and safety side and sea management relationships and stability and the environment. So that's what we're going to cover tomorrow. And hopefully that you'll all be able to come back again with us on that. So again, it's going to be at 5 o'clock in the evening. We're not doing to do the morning one because it suits better 5 o'clock in the evening. And I just hope everybody can come along again tomorrow. And I hope again that today that you found it useful, that you've had something that you can take away from today, and look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, and take care.